Tonight, you'll hear about the most remarkable financial and image resurrection in pop culture history and get a rare look at what Michael Jackson left behind.
They finally opened the door, and for a moment, nobody moved. Not a single person in that room was ready for what they were about to see, because this wasn't just any locked space. This was a place tied to one of the most mysterious and talked about figures in history, Michael Jackson. You've heard the stories, the fame, the controversies, the endless headlines. But what if I told you that some of the most revealing truths about him were never spoken, never written, just quietly sitting behind a locked garage door for over a decade? Think about that. A space untouched, frozen in time, holding pieces of a life the world never fully understood. And when that door finally opened, it wasn't just about what was inside, it was about what it meant. Because what they found didn't just surprise people, it changed how they saw him forever. So stay with me, because once you step inside this garage, there's no going back. For years after the world lost Michael in 2009, his legendary Neverland Ranch became a symbol, a place filled with memories, imagination, and mystery. But even within that iconic property, there were parts that remained off-limits, sealed, almost forgotten. And one of those places was the garage. Now, you might be thinking, a garage? What's so special about that? But this wasn't just a place to park cars. This was Michael Jackson's private world, a world no cameras were allowed in, no fans, no media, just him and the things he loved. For nearly 15 years, that garage stayed locked, not because people forgot about it, but because they couldn't open it. Legal issues, estate battles, financial complications, everything surrounding Michael's legacy was tangled in a web that took years to sort out. And during that time, the garage just sat there, quiet, untouched, almost like it was waiting. But here's the twist. It wasn't just legal reasons keeping it closed. There was something deeper. The people managing his estate understood something important. This wasn't just storage. This was history, personal history, emotional history. Every single item inside that space meant something. And rushing to open it, or worse, selling everything off, would have felt like erasing pieces of him. So instead, they preserved it. They treated it like a vault, climate-controlled, carefully monitored, only a handful of trusted people allowed inside for maintenance. Imagine that, a garage treated like a museum, because in a way, it was. And as time passed, the mystery only grew. Fans speculated, stories spread. People wondered what could possibly be inside that was worth protecting for so long. Was it luxury? Was it secrets? Was it something no one was supposed to see? Nobody knew, until the day finally came. When they decided to open it, it wasn't a public event. No cameras flashing, no reporters shouting questions, just a small group of people who understood the weight of that moment. Estate executors, archivists, a few experts, and most importantly, members of Michael's family. People who weren't just curious, they were emotional, because this wasn't just a reveal, it was a reunion. As the doors slowly creaked open, the air inside felt different, still, almost untouched by time. One person later described it as walking into a memory. And honestly, that might be the most accurate way to put it, because what they saw wasn't just objects, it was Michael. At first glance, yes, there were cars, beautiful ones, rare ones, luxury vehicles that reflected the kind of wealth and status you'd expect from someone of his level. But the deeper they looked, the more they realized something surprising. This wasn't just about luxury, it was about personality. Take one of the most talked about pieces, a custom limousine. On the outside, it looked elegant, smooth, classic. But the inside? It was like stepping into another world. Gold accents, crystal details, a design inspired by royal palaces. It wasn't just a car, it was a statement. Michael didn't just want transportation, he wanted experience, he wanted magic, and that's something people often forget about him. He didn't think like everyone else, he imagined things differently. But then, right next to that over-the-top luxury was something completely different. A simple car. Older, more understated. The kind of car you wouldn't expect someone like him to hold on to. But he did. And not only that, he kept it for years. Why? Because it wasn't about how it looked, it was about what it meant. That car represented a time in his life when things were quieter, simpler, when he could drive himself, think, create, just be alone with his thoughts. And suddenly, it hit everyone in that room. This garage wasn't about showing off, it was about holding on to moments, to feelings, to pieces of a life that moved too fast for anyone to fully understand. But what nobody expected was the emotional side of what they found. Because mixed in with the luxury and the history were things that felt deeply personal, almost childlike, and that's where things took a turn. Among the collection, there was a custom golf cart. Not just any cart. This one looked like something straight out of a fantasy story. Bright colors, playful designs, even references to Peter Pan. And in that moment, everything started to make sense. Michael Jackson wasn't just collecting things, he was building a world where he could be free, where he could escape the pressure, the fame, the constant attention, a world where he could finally be the child he never got to be. Because, let's be real, from a young age, his life wasn't normal. It was schedules, performances, expectations. He didn't grow up like everyone else. And maybe this garage was his way of taking something back, piece by piece. As they continued exploring, the reactions in the room shifted. At first, it was curiosity, then surprise, then something deeper, emotion. Because now it wasn't just about what they were seeing, it was about what they were understanding. Michael Jackson, the global icon, the legend, the headline, was also just a person. A person who loved deeply, who held on to memories, who created spaces where he could feel safe. And that realization hit hard. But the story doesn't end there. Because once the garage was opened, the big question became, what happens now? Would they sell everything? Auction it off? Let collectors take pieces of his life and scatter them around the world? That's what many expected, but that's not what happened. Because those in charge of his estate made a different decision, a powerful one. They chose preservation. They chose legacy. Instead of rushing to turn everything into money, they decided to hold on to most of it, to protect it, to keep it intact. Why? Because these weren't just items, they were stories. And more importantly, they belonged to his children, Prince, Paris, Blanket, the people who deserved the right to decide what to do with their father's life on their own terms. And honestly, that says everything. Because in a world where celebrity legacies are often turned into business opportunities, this was something different. This was respect. But let's talk about the emotional impact of all this. Because opening that garage didn't just reveal objects, it revealed truth. For years, people argued about who Michael Jackson really was. Some saw the icon, some saw the controversy, some saw the mystery. But inside that garage, there was no performance, no spotlight, just honesty. And what people saw was a man who was complex, a dreamer, someone who carried both brilliance and pain, someone who tried to build a world where he could finally feel in control. And maybe that's the part that stays with you. Because when you strip away the fame, when you remove the headlines, what's left? A human being, trying to hold on to the things that mattered. And as the doors closed again that day, there was a silence. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels full. Full of understanding, full of emotion, full of realization. Because what they found inside that garage didn't just blow their minds, it touched something deeper. It reminded everyone that even the biggest stars, the most famous names, have parts of themselves the world never sees. Private spaces, quiet moments, hidden pieces of their story. And sometimes, those are the most important parts of all. So the next time you hear the name Michael Jackson, don't just think about the music. Don't just think about the headlines. Think about that garage, that quiet, hidden place where a legend wasn't performing. He was just being himself. And maybe that's the most powerful story of all.
And maybe that's the part nobody talks about enough. Behind the legend of Michael Jackson was a man just trying to hold on to pieces of himself in a world that never stopped watching. What they found in that garage wasn't just shocking, it was human. If this story opened your eyes, make sure you hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Because trust me, the next one, you won't want to miss it.